Good morning, Michael Polson. Is that you?
Great. Now I'm a panelist. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't hit refresh. I'm like, where's Michael? So you're on. Perfect. Good morning, everybody. It looks like we have a quorum. So Chair Jamali, and I think we can start the meeting.
Sounds good. Let's go live. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December 7th CAC meeting. The meeting is now called to order. Moderator, can we please call roll?
Absolutely. Member Bauer. Member Brown. Member Christensen. Member Clifford. Member De La Rosa.
Here.
Member Frazier.
Here.
Member Paulson, I'm actually promoting you right now, so just a moment. I apologize, everybody. We had some late ads here, so we're working through making sure we have everybody accounted for. Member Payan, we'll get back to you. Member Polson? Member Shockley? Member Tupy? Member Tupy? Member Woolsey?
I'm here.
Vice Chair Nevedal?
Present.
And Chair Jamalian?
Present.
Going to wait just a moment here. So I have one person I need to we're going to stand by, everybody, just a moment. All right, Member Payan.
Present.
Perfect, thank you. All righty, we can continue. We have quorum.
Thank you, moderator. That concludes agenda item number 1. Moving on to agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes from the September CAC meeting. Those have been circulated and are publicly posted. Do any of the members have any comments? If not, would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the minutes as is, and then we can open up for public comment?
Member Woolsey, I'll move to accept the minutes.
Motion on the floor to accept the minute. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion to accept the minutes as is.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nevedal. Moderator, can we please open for public comment?
Absolutely. All right. We are now taking public comment on agenda item number 2, which is approval of the September meeting minutes. Please keep comments limited to this agenda item. If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name if you've logged on to the meeting, or by pressing *3 if you've called into the meeting. Commenters will have 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning, and each member of the public will have 1 opportunity to speak on each agenda item. And with that, we will go to our first commenter. Would anybody like to make a comment on the meeting minutes? All right. All right, so agenda item meeting minutes, it looks like no one has any comments. So would you like to close agenda item number 2?
Seeing there's no more comments, let's move to a vote on the motion first, and then we can close it.
Oh, sure. All right. As I call your name, if you approve, say aye, and if you disapprove, say nay. So we have Member Christensen,
Aye.
Member De La Rosa, Member De La Rosa, Member Frazier,
Aye.
Member Pan,
Aye.
Member Paulson,
Aye.
Member Tupy,
Aye.
Member Woolsey,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nevedal,
Aye.
and Chair Jamalian.
Aye.
It looks like they have been approved.
Thank you, moderator. That concludes agenda item number 2. Moving on to item number 3, which is the proposed schedule for the 2024 excuse me, full committee meetings. As you can see, there are only meetings proposed through June. This is because the terms expire in August of 2024, so we'll get more information from the department in a few months. And we'd like to keep this short. So members, if you have any comments about the actual proposed dates, if you have any conflicts, this is the time to voice those concerns, especially it does not conclude the subcommittee meeting. So the subcommittee chairs will work directly with the DCC staff to schedule their meetings respectively. Is there any discussion on the members' side that needs to be addressed here? Okay, appears that there's not. Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt this schedule as is? If so, then we can move on to public comment.
Member Tupy, I'll make a motion to move forward with the schedule.
Motion to move forward is on the floor. Do we have a second?
Member Pyan, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Sarah. Motion has been seconded. Could we open up for public comment, please, moderator?
Yes, sir. We are now taking public comment on agenda item number 3, which is the 2024 meeting schedule. Please keep comments limited to this agenda item. And if you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your hand by clicking the hand icon next to your name if you've logged on, or by pressing star 3 if you've called into the meeting. Again, you have 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning, and each person will have one chance to talk on this particular agenda item. And with that, the floor is open. So please raise your hand if you have a comment on the 2024 meeting dates as proposed. Does anyone of the members of the public have a comment on the 2024 proposed dates? All right. Chair Jamalian, it looks like no one has any comments on those.
Thank you, moderator. With that, we have a motion on the second on the floor. Can we please get a vote?
Yes. All right. So, Member Christensen,
Aye.
Member De La Rosa,
Aye.
Member Frazier,
Aye.
Member Payan,
Aye.
Member Paulson,
Aye.
Member Tupy,
Aye.
Member Woolsey,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nevedal,
Aye.
and Chair Jamalian.
Aye.
All right. We are set. Motion passes.
Thank you, moderator. That concludes agenda item number 3. Moving on to agenda item number 4, which is public comments on items not on the agenda. It's been a long year, but there's obviously still some major issues that we have not managed to put on the agenda. So I do want to preface that with events will be discussed next year. We're definitely going to discuss enforcement. We're going to discuss events. And if there's anything else that is very pressing, this is the time for the public to make the suggestions for future agenda items. With that, could we open for public comment, please?
Yes, and I'm going to go through this one more time. We are open for comment on agenda item number 4, which is items not on the agenda. So once again, you will have 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning, and you can speak by raising your hand please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name if you've logged into the meeting, or by pressing star 3 if you've called in. Each member will have one opportunity to speak. And with that, we'll go to our first commenter, which is Elizabeth O'Donnell. I've sent you a request to unmute.
The words of Prop 64 assured us that all the cannabis industry wouldn't be allowed to sell products packaged or advertised in such a way as to be attractive to children. Yet products sold in California stores openly flaunt this rule. A visit to our local stores in San Francisco and Oakland demonstrates this fact, and yet seems to be zero enforcement of these rules. There needs to be a guidance document spelling out what is attractive to children, which includes things like characters and color and font. Other states have done this. California has nothing. So please show us that you can properly regulate retail products and do what Prop 64 said. The number of toddlers accidentally ingesting candy products with THC has skyrocketed, and the cannabis industry is targeting their next generation of teenage users using a playbook from Big Tobacco and Joe Camel. So please enforce restrictions of child-friendly cannabis packaging and marketing, and please protect our public health and our most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next commenter is Eric Paulson. I've sent you a request to unmute. There you go.
Paulson of Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs. My comments today center around the letter sent by the DCC to relevant operators on November 9th, placing an embargo on 3 cannabis products were suspected of adulteration. Even though this embargo was placed a month ago, we have yet to hear a single explanation from the DCC of what the products were adulterated with, what further actions are taken with these products, what steps are being taken to ensure future products do not contain these adulterations. Perhaps more importantly, why was no public announcement made about the embargo? Why did we have to hear about it through the news? How many other embargoes have been placed on products without the public knowing? How many other adulterated samples does the DCC know about that are sitting on the shelves right now? We want a well-regulated legal market that benefits all Californians, one that works for the public benefit and safeguards the public trust. A market that is bold, futuristic, and responsive to change. Oh, wait, those are not my words. Those are yours, pulled directly from your mission, vision, and values statements. Is public trust, safety, and a regulated market that benefits all Californians truly represented in what we are seeing and hearing from the DCC? Our suggestions are that all embargoes on products be made public and that all disciplinary actions against operators made public as well to inform other operators about actions that could be taken if regulations are not followed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next commenter is call-in user number 5. You've been sent a request to unmute. There you go.
Thank you, advisory committee members. This is Dan Georgiadis on behalf of Purple Lotus in San Jose. I would just like to generally recommend that a subcommittee of revenue and taxation be formed. And more specifically, the interpretation from the CDTFA that gross receipts for excise tax purposes is inclusive of local cannabis business taxes has just sort of added, besides a pound of flesh being taken, which the industry, does give with the excise tax and local taxes, we're basically getting nickel and dime when you add in the local cannabis business taxes to the gross receipts for the calculation of excise tax. So if we could look into those issues, get that subcommittee formed and just look into the interpretations of the tax code, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, attendee Kelly McCormick, I've sent you a request to unmute. There you go.
Public health educator, and I would like to reinforce the comment by the first caller. It's such a loss that AB 1207 was vetoed, and we really need restrictions on products and packaging that are attractive to children. So I would like to see that discussed in the future. We need enforcement of existing regulations and warning labels, consistent warning labels for drug interactions, the dangers when marijuana is used prenatally, and warnings about the mental health effects. Consumers deserve to know this information. They need to know this information, and they are not getting it from bud tenders. And so this is something that I would very much like to advocate for. Thank you.
Thank you. And attendee Kelsey Fernandez, I've sent you a request to unmute.
And thank you all for your service on this committee. I'm wondering if DCC has created guidance on what they consider products attractive to children. Despite Prop 64's promise that marijuana products shall not be designed to be appealing to children, it seems that California legalization and commercialization of high THC cannabis products has created products that are highly attractive to children and youth. It would be great if there could be a future agenda item that looks at how this provision of Prop 64 is being defined and how manufacturers are being held accountable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, call-in user number 18. I've sent you a request to unmute.
Good morning, everyone. This is Matt Savage. Good morning, everyone. This is Matt calling from Santa Clara County. I just want to echo the previous concerns raised by others about the attractiveness of cannabis products to children. As a father of two myself, I'm concerned by products that mimic candy, breakfast cereals, etc. And I hope that this committee in the state of California can take action to make sure that these products are being used by adults, not children. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Deanna Garcia, I've just sent you a request to unmute.
today. My call in today is about excise tax and just to mimic what the last caller had said about the city tax being included in the gross receipts and the overtaxation that goes on in the cannabis industry at this time. And I would hope that the DCC would put together a committee to look at overtaxation and double and triple taxation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kenneth, I've sent you a request to unmute.
DCC staff and committee members, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I wanted to kind of piggyback on a few of the comments made about the highly potent THC products that are very attractive to our young people. We have a problem in our state in that we're not protecting young people from accessing these products. And one big glaring loophole is the fact that the DCC is not doing enforcement or checking if delivery drivers are asking for IDs when they deliver these highly potent and attractive products to people's doorsteps. The ABC does this with their drivers that deliver alcohol. They check and make sure that when the driver shows up, that they're checking for ID at the doorstep before they allow those alcohol products to be given. We don't know why the DCC is not doing this for marijuana products. Why are these marijuana products? Why is this not a priority? We've been talking about this for several years now, and we would implore and hope that there would be a priority to protect our young people against these very potent, very attractive THC products and ensure that if they're calling on the phone or making an order online, that delivery driver is checking for ID. This is not being done, and we would implore you to please start doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Dominic Black, I've just sent you a request to unmute.
Chemical analysis labs. One thing that I think is really important in terms of public safety is access to compliant COAs on products. Right now, if you go to a dispensary and you want to know more about what the product tested at, there's no way for a dispensary to give you a COA. I believe that all products should have to have some sort of QR code or other link to the COA that was published, showing all of the results, showing the heavy metals and pesticides, if there are any contaminants in there, that needs to be known. I think this would also help show that the widespread potency fraud in the industry only happens by a select set of labs, and knowing would give consumers more information on the products that they are purchasing and what groups to trust within this industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred Torregano, I've sent you a request to unmute.
As a social equity entrepreneur, you know, I hear a lot of what's going on in the industry right now, and I agree so much. And our children are one that we definitely want to protect. And I would say it's really important that we focus on, if we're going to start enforcing some of the things that we don't want to see in our state, we should not only look at the licensed businesses who are double and triple taxed, but we should look at largely the unlicensed businesses that are not taxed, that are not going through these compliance referendums that we have to go through as a business, small business, every single day, and barely make it. And then when we want to enforce the law, we want to enforce the law on people that are actually trying to do it the right way. Let's enforce the law, but let's also look at the larger market that is not regulated. We do need COAs in our stores. We don't want children having access to this, but they have it on the street, and we're not looking at that. But we're double taxing and triple taxing the businesses that actually want to do it the right way. We're the leaders in the world. We have to use our data first so we can really understand the systems. This is a very mature market in the streets. Now it's a new compliant market. We're growing it. We have to work together across it. We can't cannibalize each other as operators and overtax our business owners who want to do it the right way. So let's all come to the
30
table
seconds.
and do this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Bird, I've just sent you a request to unmute. Alicia Bird. There you go, Alicia.
Thank you for having this meeting. I would just like to piggyback off of the fellow equity operator, and I'd like to ask this question. How do we know that licensed delivery is not taking ID for minors? Um, where is the evidence in that? Every time I order from a delivery service or uh, friends of mine order from delivery services, they're being ID'd. So how do we get more information that licensed delivery services are not IDing customers? Um, I I don't know if that is coming from the licensed market or the unregulated market. I would just supporting my fellow equity operators because what the person said is exactly true. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment on agenda item number 4? Items not on the agenda. All right, last call for agenda item number 4. All right, Chair Jamalian, agenda item number 4 is closed.
Thank you, moderator. Seeing no more requests, we can move on to agenda item number 5, which is the annual report to the legislature. The committee is required by statute to submit a report to the legislature annually. That describes the recommendations the committee made to the DCC and the status of those recommendations. As provided for in our bylaws, I request that the DCC prepare a draft report for the committee to review. That report has been made available to the committee members and the public. At this time, I'd like to open up for discussion from the committee members on the draft report. So, floor is open, and I think we all probably have some comments. Well, I'll start if nobody else wants to. So, I do wanna assure the public that there are more recommendations to come next year. As we just heard in the comments, Finance and Tax Subcommittee, that was something that I wanted to create right away, and we're still looking for members for that. That is something that we take very seriously, and there's a lot of operators on this committee that have the same interests in eliminating double and triple taxation. So while those recommendations are not in this draft, they will be in our next draft. In addition to that, I think that we are going to discuss events and how to create a pipeline for events from 50 to 500 and 500 to 1,000 people, as that's currently not in the regulations. So those subjects I'd like to just kind of move to the side for next year. And if there's anything that fellow members have seen in this draft that they would like to edit, add to, or omit, please, right now is the time to discuss this before we go to public comment.
Antonio Frazier here. I was curious to know, is it possible to add a recommendation that we can vote on and submit, or is it too late for that?
Great question, Antonio. I was wondering the same thing. Could we get some guidance from the DCC here?
Hi, this is Sarah Gardner, counsel for the department. That would have to be discussed next year since it wasn't agendized for this one. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, other than that, no, I have nothing to comment or add.
Could we flip through the draft? Is there a way to do that just so that we could refresh everyone's memory on the different recommendations? Most of them were obviously based around the Appalachian program, which is something that we were set out to achieve. So, what, Vice Chair Nevedal, I see you raise his hand. You raise your hand.
Thank you, Chair Jamalian. I'm wondering if how many subcommittees met that didn't bring recommendations forward, because I'm pretty sure we convened a medical cannabis subcommittee, for example, and I don't know if maybe would be helpful to list the subcommittees, all of them that convened, whether or not a recommendation came forward. I think there was valuable discussion, regardless of whether a recommendation came forward. So that would be one question that I have. I'm just not sure who all met as far as the different subcommittees.
Great question. And is there a way to include that in the footnotes of the presentation of the report that the following subcommittees met and maybe just mark who actually made a recommendation and who hasn't? I think that's a good way to track it, Vice Chair Nevedal. Do we have any other feedback, input for the draft?
This is Michael Polson. I have a few kind of scattered comments. Should I just go through them or do one by one?
Go for it.
Okay, great. On the first recommendation about fallowing, in the recommendation, let's see, it's on page 2, top of page 2. It talks about the recommendation being that that there's a fallowing allowance so long as the proposal for the downscaling of the cultivation license doesn't increase environmental impacts, propose additional activities, propose a reconfiguration of premises, or propose new development. And I'm just wondering how that's going to be determined. Is it just a checklist? Is there going to be an inspection that's required in order to go to fallow? Some kind of administrative review? Or can it actually just be kind of pro forma, that if it's located in the same spot, just a smaller square footage, a simple form? I just want to make sure that it's not overly onerous for people that presumably are already kind of struggling, which is why they might be looking to fallow, that they're not then encumbered by more inspections and process. That's number one. I could kind of continue, or I don't know if we want to discuss that.
I actually have a question for Sarah, the Department of Cannabis Control. Our recommendations, how are they, let's say, processed? So once these recommendations are made, because these are recommendations to the legislature, right? So essentially, one of the legislators would have to sponsor is it to amend the legislation, or is this an amendment to the way that the DCC interprets the current regulation?
So the recommendations that you're appointed to make are to recommend changes to the regulations that we adopt, not the legislation. But that's where the recommendations you've made will go into the report, and then department leadership reviews those. And then if we were to make those regulation changes, we would go through the rulemaking process and initiate it that way.
And during the rulemaking process, we could, to Member Paulson's point, kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the actual enforcement. How does the guidance look, et cetera, right? So these are more kind of overarching recommendations to then really go and work out the details.
When we do the rulemaking, we would propose text, provide all the reasons, and then it would go through the public comment periods and revisions and that sort of thing.
Thank you for that clarification. So in that case, I think we should stick to the overarching theme. So Member Paulson, I would recommend that you do capture your thoughts on this, on the actual execution of the fallowing regulations, and then bring that to the rules making committee.
Okay, and that committee is part of the CAC or part of the DCC? Just new here.
I assume the DCC, but I will refer to Sarah again.
Yeah, that would be the department initiating the rulemaking, and then members of the public, including the CAC, would be able to provide comments on the proposed rules.
Thank you.
Great. So yeah, I
So
think
off to the next. Or
Yeah.
please go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think all of my comments, I'm hoping, are geared towards the actual regulatory process, you know, the rulemaking process and how these might be implemented rather than requiring a return to, but correct me if I'm wrong on any of these that would require a return to legislation, but trying to keep it restricted to what's in DCC's purview. The second kind of comment I had was on the appellations labeling. And it said, you know, I know we discussed this at the last meeting, which is my first one, still getting bearings, but about midway down on page 2, it looks like the third recommendation, the DCC specify 1 year as the appropriate transition time for businesses that do not meet the requirements for an appellation of origin. And I think I'm wondering if there's a way to put in some language around provided, you know, just providing that the seals are available and the time from application to receipt is not more than 3 months or some kind of reasonable time. You know, so that folks who might have been waiting for some time aren't penalized because the 1 year has passed and their application hasn't been processed or something of the sort. I don't know if that's something that could be reflected in here.
So if I could jump in for a second, this is Council Sarah Gardner again. So for purposes of today, it's really to discuss the report, which summarizes what you did for the past year, and it's capturing those recommendations. Anything else to go into details on like the recommendations to expand on appellations and stuff would have to be discussed and would go in next year's report. But that would to go and discuss those now, that's straying beyond our agenda. So it needs to be pulled tighter to just the discussion of what is in the report and what was done this year, rather than making new recommendations for the report today. That makes sense.
The report really reflects minutes of our past meetings. So just to be clear for everybody, like this report is literally what we did last year. So we can, I think Sarah's saying we can't really go back and change that, but we can add to it next year.
Okay, well, let me, I'll review then the rest of what I had to say and figure out if that applies.
Thank you, Member Paulson.
Hey, Chair Jamali and Antonio here again. I actually do have a comment on the things related to laboratories.
Floor is yours, Antonio.
All right, this is related to the third one, the comment or the status. First of all, the recommendation is that the DCC regulations require a distributor or laboratory to hold a specified amount of cannabis or product for confirmation testing. And the reply is that there is a provision to retain any portion of a sample that was not used in the process for 45 days. I just want to be clear that this is a sample that is not to be touched or adulterated, period. Because right now, if labs exhaust material, there's no way to confirm if what the lab took should or should not have matched what's on the shelf, and it's causing a bunch of fingers being pointed, whether it be potency, whether it be safety testing. So I just want to make sure it's clear that that recommendation is regarding a specified amount that is not to be touched or adulterated after the sampling event.
So just to understand correctly, in the subcommittee meeting and during the recommendation process, you're saying that you guys had clearly delineated the fact that it would have to be material separated from the original sample for the 45 days. Are you saying that the recommendation as it's written here is not accurate?
The recommendation to me is okay, but the status points to a current regulation about retaining any portion of unused testing material. And I just want to make it clear that yes, that is a rule, but if someone uses it all, there is no more available for confirmation testing. So this is just strictly about holding something specific to confirmation testing. So I think it's written well, but I just wanted it to be on record that the reply does not really encompass the intent of the recommendation, if that makes sense.
The status, you mean?
Status, correct. The status.
Okay. Sarah, is there a way to wordsmith that to be more accurate, to reflect the intent?
In as much as it's reflecting like this, what our regulations actually require and clearly restating that for purposes of the report, yes, that can be clarified.
Is that what you're looking for, Antonio? Would that satisfy your request?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we'll make a motion at the end of this after public comment to add that. Is there any other member that wants to make a comment, has a question, wants to edit? Sounds like there's not, in which case I would then ask the moderator to open up for public comment. I guess we do have one motion. Do we have a motion to add the verbiage reflecting the actual regulations for recommendation number 3 on the lab recommendation draft? If we want to add it, we need a motion. Looks like we don't have one. With that, can we open up for public comment, please?
Absolutely. All right, we are now taking public comment on agenda item number 4, and that is the annual report to the legislature. So if you can please, if you'd like to make a comment, raise your hand by clicking on the icon next to your name if you've logged onto the meeting, or by pressing *3 if you've called in. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to comment with a 30-second warning, and everybody will have one opportunity to speak on this agenda item. And with that, let's see if we have comments on this agenda item. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment on approving the annual report to the legislature? It looks like there are no comments, but I do think that we need to make a motion. And Sarah, if you can confirm this, a motion to approve the report?
That's correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, so we need a motion on the floor then for someone to approve and then a second.
Motion to approve the annual report to legislature. Do we have a second?
Member Woolsey, I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to adopt the annual report to the legislature. So do we have to open up for public comment again? I believe we would, right?
Yeah. All right, so
We-
yeah, sorry about that. Let's open it back up for public comment to approve the annual report to the legislature. Does anyone from the public have a comment on this agenda item? It looks like not. So can we call roll?
Yes, please. Can we get a vote for the motion on the floor?
Perfect. All right. Member Christensen.
Aye.
Member De La Rosa.
Aye.
Member Frazier. Member Frazier.
Aye.
Member Pan.
Aye.
Member Paulson. Member Tupy.
Aye.
Member Woolsey.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nevedal.
Aye.
And Chair Jamalian.
Aye.
All right. Looks like it passed.
Great. That concludes agenda item number 5. Moving on to agenda item number 6, future agenda items. Recommendations for future agenda items. If there's anything that you want to have included in our next meeting set for March, We will include those recommendations from any subcommittees that meet between now and the March committee meeting. I'll also work with the DCC to build an agenda based on evolving conversations and upcoming activities. Are there any other agenda items that have not been discussed yet that members would like to bring up?
Member Frazier here. Like I'm the only one talking, but I mean, I would like to talk about certified personnel. I'm specifically thinking about labs and anyone that certifies data, being certified and trained, just like every other industry, whether it be alcohol, aerospace, or whatever. And then if any of the other sectors believe that there's certain roles that should require specialized training or, at least being certified with the state so that certain people cannot maneuver around from different business to business and have suspecting owners potentially, be at fault for their bad actions. So the state needs a better record of who's producing, in my mind, lab data, but maybe there's other activities that will follow under the same idea. So I don't know if I should just focus on the lab committee, but I think it'd be worth us all talking about, whether it be bud tenders, manufacturers, but I definitely think anyone certifying lab data should be traceable and documented with the state.
When you say certifying people that handle data, is this more of a consumer, a worker safety? What's the?
It would be more of ensuring that people are qualified to perform their duties. So specific to labs, there's people that have to sign off on the DCC's data packets. In my mind, anyone with the authority to sign off in the manager section should be approved by the DCC, or at least have like some type of number, license, certificate that can be tracked as they maneuver through different laboratories, potentially performing the same bad actions as they jump to, new unsuspecting ownership.
So this is pretty much it. So this is actually quite specific to lab fraud, right? And I think that's great.
Yes,
That's
how I'm
really
bringing
where
it
you're,
to,
yeah.
yes, how
Okay.
I'm thinking of it, yes,
Okay.
but I was saying if there's any other positions that you all believe in the industry could benefit from this kind of oversight, I would welcome it. But I definitely think I'm thinking about the lab specifically.
Okay, so in terms of agendizing it, I'm just asking so I know how to actually word the agenda. Thank you. Any other items for next year that you want to see discussed? And again, I had mentioned events, tax and finance subcommittee. We're obviously going to work on those as well. I know that the DCC is working on enforcement of illicit activities on the streets as well as in storefronts, etc. So those items will also be considered next year. Vice Chair Navidal.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Jamalian. A couple cultivation items, and actually one of them spans beyond cultivation, but I was thinking perhaps it might be helpful to offer a conversation around the use of light deprivation in the outdoor tier and clarity on what exactly triggers a mixed light license being required by the state. There's just been a lot of questions that have come up recently around that, and then transitioning licenses and then not allowing the transition of licenses based on timelines. And then I think trade samples could also use some additional conversation. I know this has been a hot topic in the past, but we had recent regulations come out, and then there's been kind of a flurry of questions around how trade samples, like the chain of custody for them within the supply chain.
All very good points. Thank you, Vice Chair Navidal. If the members, oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask for just a little elaboration? You mentioned there's going to be an agenda item around enforcement on unlicensed activity, and I'm curious what the contours of that are. It's a broad topic, so I'd like.
Well, I think from just following in the news that the DCC has been doing probably more enforcement this year than in any year since 2018. So the idea was to ask the DCC what their enforcement rates have been, maybe even get some numbers by region. I'm not sure what they can divulge without divulging their methods, and potentially compromising any sort of investigation. But I would like to kind of ask as a committee what proportion is enforcement with license holders and what's enforcement that is just with real illicit activity in coordination with the DEA, FBI, and state and local authorities, which they have been doing. I think one of the public commenters answering to the public safety crowd had a really good point that a lot of these products that we see that are, appealing towards kids or available, I don't think you know if they came from the streets or not. And there's also a lot of licensed businesses that distribute their product in the illicit and the licensed market. So as a consumer, it'd be really hard to tell the difference. And that's sort of where I also want to drill down, that are you going after the egregious actors that play both markets? How are you enforcing against illicit market operators that have no licenses? So I'd like to kind of ask the DCC to drill down a little bit more in that data. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that would be great. Can I add a few items to that list then?
Please, absolutely.
Great. I think it's great to understand, the split between licensed and unlicensed. I think what would be really helpful is to understand the types of charges that are being brought and their disposition, whether they've been settled, charged, convicted. And then also some population data, both broken out into licensed and unlicensed, along racial, citizenship, gender, income, and operation size. I've been doing a lot of work in banned counties and also on the unlicensed market in general. And I'm concerned that we might be actually creating, and this may be a topic for the equity subcommittee, not necessarily with the DCC's efforts, but in enforcement more broadly, a new class of criminalized folks. And so I'd like to get a little bit more, and with a lot of the same dynamics racially and income-wise that we've seen through the war on drugs. So I would like to get any kind of sense of that, particularly with the United Cannabis Enforcement Task Force. And then also, if it's possible, it would be great to hear from somebody from CDFW or from Department of Justice about their respective enforcement programs, which are pretty wide-ranging along the same lines.
I couldn't agree more, and I think we can just help me draft that agenda item for next year, and we'll make sure that it's all encompassing.
Sure thing, thanks.
And if I may, Chair Jamalian, just to Member Polson's point, there was also some environmental enforcement teams. So, in reference to the CDFW report back, perhaps getting some report back on how the unified environmental enforcement had progressed and the findings there.
Thank you, Vice Chair Navidal. If there are no more comments from my fellow members, I would like to hear from the public.
My hand is raised, Chair Jamalian.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Please.
That's okay. Hi, Member Robin Christensen. So I want to echo the emphasis on enforcement. I think I would love to see this as being an issue that's carried through in 2024, including hearing from DCC and our partners. I just want to double and echo the suggestion by Member Paulson. I'd also like to know whether there's an opportunity for a subcommittee here that is focused on enforcement and whether that would be relevant and up for consideration. I'm not certain where it currently sits within the current structure of our subcommittees, and that might reflect my own ignorance. So I'm here to learn from folks who've been on this committee longer than I have, but I think it's just such a worthwhile topic, particularly because, from the consumer's perspective, it's just a real challenge to differentiate between the licit and illicit market. And my understanding is we're all here together to make the legal market as healthy and strong as it can be and robust for both the consumers and the businesses that are involved here. So I would hate to see a legitimate business be sort of clustered together with the illicit businesses that are taking advantage and should be better enforced.
I think in our industry, enforcement kind of stretches across all sectors, right? So I think it's difficult to say one particular subcommittee would be in charge of enforcement. It could be the licensing subcommittee for licensees that are doing illicit activities. and it could be an environmental or the cultivation subcommittee for illegal grows. So I think we have to put our heads together and kind of split up the work and the recommendations into its sort of, smaller parts that are affected. Social equity is a big one. I was affected by the war on drugs, and to Member Paulson's point, we don't want to repeat that. So I think this is something that our committee needs to figure out. If there was a blueprint, that would be nice, but I don't think there is one.
All right, appreciate your insights there.
But to your point of consumer safety, for example, in places that are underserved, right? That's why we have the retail access grant. So that's something I would push in regions that are underserved, and educating consumers that, these sessions that happen, for example, these are not licensed activities. You can't really go to a room with 50 tables where there's a party and buy illegal cannabis, right? So I think a lot of it also comes down to the consumer-facing public campaign that the DCC is doing next year. They're doing an ad campaign. So I think what we should have on the future agenda is an overarching enforcement conversation, which we then can send to subcommittees.
Excellent. Thank you. And then the other thing that I wanted to note was probably not for the March meeting, but possibly for the June meeting would be a follow-up on the high potency THC discussion, which occurred in, I want to say, the June meeting of last year. So I just wanted to put that forward as having a sort of an update in response to the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. There's no other comment. Let's hear from the public.
All righty, we will open up public comment for agenda item number 6, which is recommendations for future agenda items. Please keep your comments limited to this agenda item. And if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name if you've logged in, or by pressing *3 if you've called into the meeting. All commenters will have 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning, and each member of the public have 1 opportunity to speak on each of this agenda item. And with that, go to our first commenter. Lori Dubin, I've sent you a request to unmute.
I'm with public health organizations in Marin County, and listening to this meeting, I'm very concerned that public health and protections for youth are on products in the legal market. I'm not talking about the illicit market. I'm talking about the legal market. It doesn't seem to be a focus. It needs to be a focus for future agenda items. I'm talking enforcement against products that are attracted to youth. Again, you need only walk into any dispensary, any website. Cookies has particularly egregious examples of products that are legal, that are attracted to youth. And this needs to be addressed, especially in light of the governor veto of 1207, the Cannabis Candy Child Safety Act. I also note that that legally cannabis companies are selling synthesized hemp products. This needs to be addressed, with also an emphasis on enforcement of inhalable vapes and smoke products that are hemp products, as well as edibles that come in jars with huge amounts of servings. So I'm just sitting here listening to a committee that is basically talking about industry concerns and not about public health concerns, and especially protections to youth. There's been zero enforcement, as far as I know, against these products that blatantly are marketed and designed to attract youth. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Al Perez, I've just sent you a request to unmute. There you go.
Cannabis in our jurisdiction, just recently retail as well. I wanted to thank the state for offering the fee waivers that have been ongoing. It's been a tremendous help, I know, to the public, especially for those who are just just barely making it, which is, from my observation, most of them. But I wanted to go further. I know of two recent operators that within the city of LA that are that are social equity operators that just went under for their retail. They just had to sell. They weren't making any money, and mainly because they don't have any brands that they've been able. They have their products. They grow their own products, but they haven't been able to get to a level of branding where they could sell their own product. They're out selling cookies, they're out selling Stizzy like everyone else, but they're getting taxed 100% on the products that they purchase from them, as if it was their product. So I was wondering if the committee might in the future consider some type of grants that are similar to the waivers that would allow these smaller companies, these mom and pops that are trying to establish themselves to create their own brands, so that they can rise to a level of being profitable.
30 seconds.
Profitable. Those are my only concerns or comments.
Thank you. Alicia Bird, I've just sent you a request to unmute.
Would like to recommend for future agenda that more grant money from the state level be allocated and given to cities who support local equity programs. We hear a lot about enforcement for the unregulated market. Without more grant money, the state of California is forcing those who would choose to be legal to remain unlegal because we don't have the financial ability to become legal. My team and I were awarded a grant through the city of Oakland, and ultimately the grant came from the state to purchase property to build a shared kitchen for fellow Oakland equity operators. The legal industry is extremely expensive. It is very important that the committee make sure that it's on all future agendas, that more money continues to be given to equity operators, equity programs, people
30
who are
seconds.
people who are trying to be legal and do the right thing, but we cannot do that without money. We need more grant money. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Arash Sharush, I've just sent you a request to unmute.
This opportunity to speak. My name is Arash Jason Sarouche. I am a policy researcher at the Public Health Institute. I'd like to echo the committee members who suggested a future agenda item about enforcement of existing regulations. I think that most of us can agree that voluntary compliance is the ultimate goal, but what is the DCC doing to support that? While the DCC does have a list of 28 disciplinary actions that were taken since its formation, it'd be great if the DCC could report on inspections and anything like warnings or guidance they've given directly to licensees to help them maintain compliance, because businesses do need help interpreting regulations. Policy interpretation is not something that comes naturally to everyone, and not all businesses can afford to have a whole legal team to help them understand the often complicated regulations that DCC has put in place since its formation. So I just really think it'd be great to hear more from the DCC about what they're doing to support compliance among licensed businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, call-in user number 30. I've just sent you a request to unmute. Call in user number 30. There you go.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you. So in the future, I'd love to see the committee look at the hemp market, the high potency hemp market, the products that are being sold in licensed stores. I believe in order to be able to create these products, usually they need to be synthesized, and these synthesized products are illegal at this time. So many of these products are illegal. So I'd like the committee to suggest that the DCC, look at control and enforcement of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Javier, I've just sent you a request to unmute.
Social equity license holder with the delivery business here in Sacramento. I just wanted to see about getting more representation for delivery retail on this committee and more topics that relate to it. I feel like there's a lot of issues that go unspoken of. One is that there's no legal way to transfer inventory from one car to another if there is an emergency on the road, whether that's a breakdown and or accident. The regulations only allow for that inventory to stay in that car until it is brought all the way back to the warehouse. Another issue that I have seen as a small operator is that the social equity initiatives are capped at 5 million gross. I'm a legacy operator, never had an investor, started this business with my best friends 8 years ago. I still don't own a house. My parents don't own a house. I try to support them with everything that I can, but we're still unable to make ends meet with all the regulations and taxes that are here. The cap at 5 mil seems arbitrary and doesn't really encompass what is a small and or large business. I'm still a small operator here in Sacramento, like I said, with no investors, and we're left out of all of these social equity things that are available to others on a statewide level. Thankfully, we do qualify at the city level, but I would like to see more fidelity with the local and state regulations. Another thing is our licensing fees. Licensing fees are set in stone in terms of profit or revenue amounts. So if you go $1 over 6 million, your license fee jumps $40,000. 2 years ago, we did $6 million and $40,000 in revenue. Just because of that $40,000, our licensing fee jumped $20,000.
30 seconds.
Something like a tapered solution, something kind of like what the IRS does, where once you go into a bracket, you get a percentage of that fee added on, not just all at once. That would allow a little bit more ease into transitioning into a larger business. Either way, I would just like to see a little bit more retail delivery topics be brought up. I know there's a lot of talk about public health, labs, cultivation, but I feel like we're underrepresented here. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamai, I've sent you a request to unmute.
And I haven't heard anything about organic growing marijuana. And so I would like the subject to be brought up, when people is really concerned about, not knowing what you're consuming. If you have specifically the sale of organic growing cannabis, then, there's a choice. Would you guys be able to add that into the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Deanna, I just cut you off. I'm sorry. Can you re-raise your hand, please? There you are. I've just sent you a request to unmute. I apologize.
No problem. I accept your apology and thank you for being here today. Thank everybody for being on this call. I would like to bring up smoke shops. They're unregulated, of course, in the cannabis industry. They sell Delta 9, Delta 8, hemp products. Stizzy has a brand that sells vapes there. Cookies has a brand that sells vapes there. Wild and Select. These are all cannabis brands that are also in the regulated cannabis market, but they're also in the non-regulated cannabis hemp market and selling in the smoke shops. And a lot of times my customers come into retail stores and they'll have, you know, a stizzy or a wild product that they bought in a smoke shop, and they're looking, you know, to replace it with a cannabis product. And I just think that the city and the state, the DCC, is really overlooking the smoke shops and allowing them to get away with non-paying taxes on the level that we're paying taxes. And I'd like to see something done about that in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, call-in user number 29. I've just sent you a request to unmute.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Michelle Leopold, and on what the last caller mentioned, the Delta 8, Delta 9 law, my understanding is no vapes and no. Sorry, somebody's talking to me.
I'd like to remind all the public commenters, excuse me, that your comments have to be related to the agenda items. The DCC is not in charge of actually administering the Delta 8 and Delta 9 that is coming from the hemp market. As much as we all want to fight this, it's not within our jurisdiction.
Okay, well, we should put that as a future agenda item and see who can fight it, because there's definitely a lot of bad players in that market. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I don't see any more commenters. Last call for agenda item number 6, recommendations for future agenda items for the Cannabis Advisory Committee. All right, Chair Jamalian, I don't see any more comments. Would you like to close agenda item number 6?
Thank you, moderator. Yes, please close agenda item number 6, and then moving on to agenda item number 7. Members, thank you for all your time this year, the DCC as well. It's been a pleasure. The meeting is adjourned.